Hi everyone, this is Professor Gardner with this week's discussion board wrap-up video. Thank you to all of you who have participated. It was really nice to kind of go through and see what your experience of the classics were, and not surprisingly, Shakespeare popped up, Frankenstein. It was nice to see also Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre, and that you guys also brought the conversation to more modern classics, which conversely also brought me back to high school, looking at Fahrenheit 451 in 1984. And though I haven't read it yet, Brave New World. Of course, there were the classic poets that you all mentioned too. Not surprisingly, Edgar Allan Poe was on the list. And for me, while I didn't get to read Poe, at least the poetry, we read more of his short stories. But my experience with Poe as a poet and The Raven was from growing up with The Simpsons. You know, the Halloween episode every year, at least when it was an annual thing, always included Bart reading The Raven. Yeah, so that's my connection with it. And one of your classmates also brought up how these classics kind of make their way into popular culture, right? And that's a perfect example of that. So when we ask this critical question, you know, what's a classic? And we already see a range of genres from different time periods. It's important to consider part of that question of what's a classic is what's circulated as a classic, right? And popular culture is in large part responsible for that. Of course, it's much more involved than that, and we're going to continue to put pressure on what a classic is. And we're going to do that in part by the way that I've set up texts for the semester. We're going to begin with so-called classics, and we'll be focusing on poetry. It'll allow us a quick way to be introduced to a very conventional form of literature. And then we're gradually going to kind of depart from that. So I want us to all be on the same page. We haven't all read the same classics. And as far as poetry goes, we haven't all read the same poems, although there's some commonality, right? So I just want to make sure and kind of guarantee that we are all on, we are sharing common ground when it comes to classical poetry. And I will have the full list of poems that you'll be reading for